Hello there everybody, this is Kristen. Welcome back to Crochet Witch Tarot on this Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon when you're seeing this, possibly. I was just gonna say I just finished watching. No, I watched this like a week ago. The latest tag put out by Logan from Larkin Legend here on YouTube. My hashtag Tarot Firsts prompt, and I just thought this was so much fun and such a great idea for us all to get to know each other better. And I know I've been here for a hot minute, but we do have some new friends here, so I thought it would be kind of fun to just go through my tarot firsts again. And I'd love to see, I've been watching some more responses. I'd love to see if you like to post videos, and if you don't, if you want to comment below on this video, or of course I'm gonna link Logan's video below. You know, if you want to put that there. There's a lot of fun prompts in this, and I also just want to mention that Logan is a wonderful, wonderful deck creator, and their Black Salt Tarot is currently on Kickstarter, and I was, no, it's not upside down, very much lucky to receive an advanced prototype from Logan, and I have just been so obsessed with this deck. It has seriously not left my reading desk, so I just wanted to mention that as well quickly, and I will put the link for that below. I mean, look at the foil. Oh, it's so cool. I know this is not what this video is about, but I had to show. Oh, it's so good. I gotta show. Hold on, my favorite two cards might be this rocket ship for the chariot, so cool, and this bird skull for death, so awesome. Anyway, so that's that. I will put the Kickstarter down below. It is still currently funding, so if you are interested, you are still able to back that. Anyway, let's get right into it, why don't we? So the first prompt is your first encounter with tarot, and my first encounter at all with tarot was through my friend Rachel, who works at the library with me. This was are we allowed to say COVID on here? Pre-COVID times? Whisper? And I hardly even remember how or why we were talking about it. Gosh, I don't know. I think it was something that she'd been exposed to before, but was like getting back into, so she might have been showing me some decks she had or something, or I just even feel like she was just telling me about it. I have no memory of it. No memory of it. But, I had just started in the full-time children's librarian position at that library. I had been working there part-time, so I knew Rachel a bit, but she worked in the children's department, so we were kind of like just becoming friends, and she was telling me about this really cool thing, and I was like, oh my gosh, I want to look into this, because I like card decks, and I want to get to know Rachel better, so we're gonna look into that. And so that was that. That truly was my first exposure to it. Was like, oh my gosh, I want to be better friends with Rachel, so I'm gonna look into this thing that she likes. So from there, I want to say she might have been telling me that she got a deck from Barnes & Noble or something, so naturally I also went to Barnes & Noble and picked up my first deck, which is the next prompt. Your first mass market deck and then your first indie deck. So I did start with a mass market deck, and that was the Cat Tarot, which I probably mention so often, but it's such a good one. It's such a good one. Now, I will say, I don't recommend this one. I mean, you can use whatever the heck you want as a beginner. What am I to put labels on things, you know? This is what I started with. If I could, like, teleport myself back as a hologram and be like, Krista, don't pick that one. Would I do that? Maybe, yeah, because this one wasn't the easiest I could have chosen to learn off of, because it really does go its own direction in some ways. I don't know if it's necessarily its own direction, but the the suits are different. Actually, there's not even like suit names on it, but I think they are kind of named different in the guidebook from what I'm remembering. Now, I feel like I know this deck so well now that it's just, I don't know, second nature a bit, but maybe they're not differently named. Basically, you're kind of given a symbol and then the Roman numeral, and that's what you have to go off of. So it's not right there on the card like it would be on like a regular Smith-Waite deck, but I mean, it's undeniably cute, and I entirely picked this one because, as I've said many times, this looks exactly like my cat Stevie, so that was the only motivation, but I didn't have any other knowledge to go off of when choosing a deck, so, you know, what else would I expect me to do? But I love this one. This is Stevie's deck now. I don't even, like, really read for it with for myself or for others. It's pretty much Stevie's deck, so yeah. Still a fave. That is the Cat Tarot. Now, I had to really kind of think on this one what my first indie deck was, but I'm pretty positive. It was the... Is this right? I'm pretty sure this is right. I'm pretty sure. This is the indie edition of the Prairie Majesty Oracle, put out by Kara Simons, whose work I absolutely love. And so I'm pretty positive this was my first indie deck buy, and it's still a deck I really, really love. This tends to come out more in the summertime for me nowadays, now that my collection is larger and I can do things like have decks that are very, like, seasonal. So this is much more of a summer deck for me, but I really do love this deck, and you can get it mass market now, which is super cool. But yes, this is one that Rachel had been following Kara on Instagram for quite some time, and when this deck came out, she sent the link to me, and it was my first really kind of experience of like, oh, people put out their own decks that you can just buy off their personal websites. Like, you don't have to just go through the mass market realm. Like, oh my gosh, that's neat. Like, I had no idea that any sort of indie deck creating existed until this. And so I picked this one up, and then in a separate order, pretty much I want to say a week later, I got her first edition of the Grandmother's Oracle, which is now the Song of the Grandmother's Oracle, which is fantastic. But yes, love this deck. This was my first indie deck. And the only reason I say I'm like mildly uncertain is I think I also got Holly Audley's, one of her cemetery decks pretty close around then. But I'm 99% sure this was the first indie deck. So, first Kickstarter tarot. I'm gonna have to go by first Kickstarter tarot I received, because the first one I ever backed, I still don't have. It's coming, apparently. I just got a shipping notification. Is that mildly annoying? Yes, because I don't even want to know how long it's been. 2 years? More than 2 years, I think. Yes. But I was introduced to the world of Kickstarter by my old neighbor, who actually, this deck that should be coming soon, she sent me, she's very big into Kickstarter. Loved, like, I think Kickstarter there's a lot of like pins you can collect too, and she just loved collecting the art, which I thought was so awesome. But she sent me this tarot, which was technically the first one I backed. Yeah, so because she thought I would like it, and I totally did at the time. You know, tastes changed in 2.5 years, so we'll see. But that's what brought me into Kickstarter, and then seeing like, oh, okay, so then there's indie decks, but then people also like fundraise for these indie decks on Kickstarter, like, so opened up a whole other world. So the first Kickstarter that I then received was Holly Audley's Teeny Tiny Tarot, which is another absolute favorite. This is like my tried and true mini travel deck. Anytime I'm traveling and going somewhere, this one comes with me. I am a Holly Audley fangirl. I think I have all of her decks at this point. I'm pretty positive on that. And I think her artwork is so fantastic. She's also just fantastic as a human being in general. I love this one. This is my first Kickstarter that came in. It also came with the mini Divi Ghosts, but I have all my mini Divis combined, so I didn't want to separate them out, so I figured I would just show this. But yes, this is my first Kickstarter that I received. I also wanted to mention, though, because, again, timelines, I just can't quite remember. I'm going back, like, this campaign finished first. I don't know that it actually came in first, but I have such a memory of this deck being one of like the very first ones I backed on Kickstarter and received, and it's still such a favorite, so I wanted to mention. Whoa, I'm dropping things, okay. But that is the Coastal Curiosities Oracle. This here is the first. Did you hear Stevie growl? What's out the window? I'm gonna check out the window. Whoa! All good. It's just the neighbor out with their dog. Stevie just chose crankiness today. Right, Stevie? No, she's still watching. We're getting it together. Anyway, I also wanted to mention this deck, which is the first edition of the Coastal Curiosities Oracle. And I don't know, this one is just such a memory in my head because I went so back and forth on backing this deck just because I was just unfamiliar with the process of Kickstarter at that point, and I don't know, I just went really back and forth, and I remember I backed this deck probably within the last hour you could, and now I can't imagine if I hadn't done that because this is probably like my favorite Oracle ever. It's so good. I now have the second edition, which is my edition that is in use because it has some extra cards. This one came with some coastal charms, which is a really cool feature, but I think the creator was thinking of putting this in like its own deck, which would be awesome. But I had to mention this one too because I just love this deck, and I just remember it coming in really early on into my Kickstarter experience, and it also was homed in the first ever crochet tarot bag I made. So, I don't know, I just think that's cool too. The first edition and this bag I just kind of keep on display as a memory. But yes, those are my first Kickstarter decks. My first tarotuber, I already know, it was Lisa Papez, who I still love watching. I'm sure most of us, anyone here watching, loves watching Lisa. But I didn't know for a really long time into learning tarot that tarot tube was a thing. But I think, I don't even know which deck I was looking into, because I used to just look up pictures online, or I would go off of what was shown on either like the mass market website or the creator's website. I would just go off their pictures. And I think there must have been a deck that I was looking up where one of Lisa's walkthrough videos came up, and I was like, oh, like people post videos on YouTube like showing every card in a deck, like that's cool. And at that point I was learning how to crochet actually, and I loved watching YouTube while I was crocheting for some reason. I was watching Pokemon gameplay streams. That's what I was watching at the time. And so then I switched over to watching that video of Lisa's, and then like it's such a weirdo. Not that this is not a weird thing to do. I'm laughing at myself, not saying this is a weird thing to do if you also like to do this. Again, just remembering, because Lisa had a playlist of all the walkthroughs she had ever done up to that point, and I sat and just played through the playlist. It wasn't even like I was watching because I was necessarily, obviously I didn't get like every deck in there, or that I was pinpointing certain decks I was interested in. I just loved watching the videos and hearing how Lisa talked about the cards and the decks. It just, I don't know, it just was a fun thing to watch while I was learning how to crochet at that point. So I know that was my first tarotuber because it came up on Google when I was searching some deck, and I wish I remembered what it was, but I do not. But yeah, she still has fabulous walkthroughs if you want to check that out. But again, I'm sure you all have seen those walkthroughs from Lisa. My first tarot book was Kitchen Table Tarot by Melissa Sinova. Now this is actually my second copy of the book. I gave my last one to aforementioned neighbor who kind of collected art off Kickstarter because she had some really beautiful tarot decks, but really just she liked supporting the artists, and then having this collection, she then decided she wanted to learn how to read tarot, and this is my favorite tarot book to this day. I love this book from Melissa Sinova, so I gave her this, my first copy of that, to learn how to read tarot. So, but then I missed it, so I got another copy, and actually, I didn't even read this like, you know, like this all the way through. I listened to the audiobook version of this that actually my library had through Hoopla at the time, and it's a fantastic audiobook. I totally recommend. I also love her Kitchen Table Magic, which I listened to as an audiobook, so this is still probably my favorite tarot book of all time. I just love how she puts it into really like easy to understand kind of everyday situations. It just really kind of brought a lot of that esoteric down to earth a little bit, down to like the everyday. So I really recommend, if you're looking for kind of insight on the cards in a way that helps you read for just like in a daily reading kind of way, this is the way to go. I love this book. My first tarot podcast was the Wildly Tarot podcast, which is still my favorite tarot podcast. I started out listening to, I don't know if they're still, I haven't checked, I assume they would still be there, but they had this series where they went through card by card. There were like these mini episodes where each episode was a tarot card, and they went through and truly just talked about their views on the card, and that's actually was really something I learned, or I used to learn how to read tarot as well. I listened to all of those episodes before I even read any sort of tarot book or anything, just because listening to things tends to be more accessible to me, and I loved Holly and Esther's views on all the cards, but then as their usual podcast, they pick a deck to review per episode, typically, but they start out by doing readings for questions that listeners send in, and so listening to that too also gave me perspective on how they were interpreting the cards for certain situations, which is really interesting. I still love that podcast. It's fantastic. First tarot course. I've never taken a tarot course, so to be determined. I've never taken a tarot course. Well, I've never officially taken a tarot course. I did watch through a couple of the videos for Lisa Papez's Tarot with Training Wheels, which is free here on YouTube. So also really great starting point, I would say. I really enjoyed, even though like I wasn't a beginner tarot reader when I was watching them, I still just enjoyed watching them, so highly recommend, and it's right here on YouTube, so yeah. First major tarot teaching you relearned in a way that better suited you. Now I'm not remembering how Logan answered this question. First major tarot teaching you relearned in a way that better suited you. I'm going to circle back to that question and rewatch Logan's answer, because now I'm not remembering quite what that question meant. First tarot deck you rehomed. The Wildwood Tarot, which is back. She's back, baby. I got this as one of my first, like, my very first decks, and it was too much. Again, very unguided in my tarot deck selection when I was trying to learn tarot, because this entirely follows its own system. So I was there listening to podcasts and audiobooks about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and using very much not Smith-Waite decks, so yeah, I rehomed this one, and now have repurchased it, and it's one of my absolute favorites, so I guess that just goes to show. Sometimes it's right place, wrong time with decks, I've been finding. But I love this one, so that is my first one that I rehomed, but I did end up with, I got this copy used, and I think it's an earlier edition because it's on different cardstock, so in a way I'm actually kind of, it's because it's not shiny. I don't know what that's about, because it's a legit copy, like I absolutely know that. Oh, I don't know if an earlier copy just was on, like, it's thinner cardstock, like matte cardstock, though, so kind of glad about that in a way. I don't know. First deck that touched you emotionally. Are we all going to be surprised? Probably not. The Northern Animal Tarot. I had such a connection with this deck from just seeing the images online. I don't know what it was. It just was something I was like, I need to have that, but definitely could not afford at the time. So I did not, I don't know if it was a pre-order or I think maybe it was on Kickstarter, actually. But I did not back that Kickstarter. But then the creator, Linda, put up some seconds copies, basically. So this, at the time, again, I went for just the cheapest option because I just wanted to be able to have this deck in my hands, however it was that I could do that. Because I had just gone through a big move, a big job change, it actually was not a big job change, what am I saying? A big change in terms of I graduated with my master's and started my first full-time job, so, you know, that is what it is. But this deck came to me, it did not have a box, I think the bag it came in, which is the bags that Linda hand inks, like prints on, I think even that might have been a little damaged. The cards are miscut, but man, it's still, to this day, one of my favorite decks, and it just, something about it really immediately clicked with me. This artwork, it's a deck that just, it gets me, you know, we have that really close bond, and I feel like getting that seconds deck, kind of, at the time, again, being really the only way I could access this deck, not saying it's, like, anything wildly, or was anything wildly outrageous for an indie deck, but you know, times in life. It just, I don't know, it was a whole special thing that it felt so special that I could have this deck, and yeah, it's a real ride or die for me. It really gets me, and I do have the new 3rd edition now as well, which I'm really excited about. This copy is so beat up. This is my 1st edition. So I'm glad to have 2 copies of this deck, so that way it's like I don't really need to... not that I really don't ever tend to feel precious about my decks, but I would be pretty devastated if something happened to this one and I didn't have a way to have like another copy of it. So that's that. That is the Northern Animal Tarot. And also, again, Linda is such a fantastic human being from the interactions I have had with her, and you can just tell how much she really cares about the work she puts into it and making it also environmentally sustainable as much as possible, which I think is really fantastic. So totally recommend checking her out. Her work is amazing. And you know when you could just feel that in a deck, it's like you feel the care that went into it. That's another amazing thing about the Northern Animal decks in general. So that is my first deck that touched me emotionally. So the technical last question, but then we're going to circle back around to that other one, is first tarot-inspired artwork that you made. So I am not an artiste in the classical sense of brush, pen, and paper, you know? I love doing digital collage, I do love that, but we're gonna go to my first tarot art I've made, and you know what, I really like it. I really like it. So, something I have been doing the past few months in order to work through some, lived experiences, I guess, as a neurodivergent person, and really, like, working through now knowing, like, what's actually going on, just being late diagnosed as well, I have been relating my emotions that I'm feeling in that way to tarot cards, and then kind of drawing out with these little blobby ghost figures that I just came up with what it is that I'm feeling. So, for example, I don't have many cards yet, but this is the... Ooh, are we gonna be able to focus on this? This is what I came up with the Four of Swords. This is a little blobby ghost showing what it feels like when I can put on my noise-canceling headphones at the end of the day. When I get home from work, or if I'm just feeling overstimulated, like what happens when I could put on my noise-canceling headphones, which feels very Four of Swords to me. This is my example of the Seven of Cups, when I am kind of in that executive dysfunction paralysis. This is what I relate to the Seven of Cups to a lot. So you can see there's our blobby ghost with a little brick wall and like all these possibilities in their head kind of jumbled around. So yeah, this is my... Oh, for the Two of Cups, I drew parallel play, how I see parallel play. So we got two blobby ghosts, one painting the wall, which I feel like is very fitting, and one just sitting on the couch reading. So they're doing their own activities, but in the same space, which is very kind of Two of Cups in a neurodivergent experience to me. So yeah, that's been a cool way I've been kind of working through gathering my thoughts around those things. Now, I'm gonna pause here. We're gonna go back to the other question, last but not least, once I rewatch that section. I get it now. Now I remember. And actually, I have the same card that Logan did as well. So for me, let's go back to the question. It was the first major tarot teaching you relearned in a way that better suited you. And Logan said the Seven of Swords, and I'm going to say the Seven of Swords as well, because in many tarot books and teachings, it talks about the Seven of Swords being very... speaking on sneakiness, kind of backstabbing type energy, and I remember it was coming up so much in my readings when I first got the, oh my gosh, what is that deck called? Is it right here? I've got so much stuff on my bench, but I think it's right here. No, it's not, is it? Oh, the deck with all the vintage photographic images. Carte Postale came to me. Carte Postale. I kept getting the Seven of Swords from that deck, and it was this really interesting thing where you could see it as sneakiness, but it's this man peering from behind this like curtain or wall or something. And it kept coming up, and I was like, I don't have anything going on or anyone I'm interacting with that would be that kind of sneaky, mistrustful energy that kind of like watch behind your back. Like that wasn't going on, so I was so confused, and I was like, there's got to be something else. And just like Logan said in their video, I don't know where I saw it, but I saw someone explaining it more as again, this is very similar to what Logan said, but which I wonder if we saw it in the same place. I don't know. This energy of what are you kind of hiding or attempting to hide from yourself? So not needing to take that Seven of Swords kind of sneakiness energy and putting it external, like I think a lot of guidebooks and books explain it, but being able to more bring it inward of like, okay, what am I trying to hide from myself right now? What is it that I know I need to look into and I'm just not doing it? So that usually tends to fit the situation way better of like, what am I ignoring here? How am I fooling myself, you know, or trying to fool myself because it's not working, you know? So that definitely was the teaching that once I learned that way, it made so much more sense in the ways it was coming up in my readings. But that was the last question. This was so much fun, so thank you so much to Logan for putting up yet another fantastic tag. They have just been on fire with the tag ideas. It's been amazing. But I hope you're all having a great Sunday, and I will see you all again very soon.